Hello, class. This is your professor, Dr. Brian Lippincott, and I'm here for your class in History and Systems Psychology. And what I'm going to talk about today is Elliot Aronson and his use of the term cognitive dissonance and in social psychology. And what we're going to discuss is how he utilizes that in a variety of areas like dating, getting people to conserve water, use condoms to prevent AIDS, and a lot of different various important things in our history. We have the amazing Aronson, self-concept, cognitive dissonance, and the science of the social animal. And this is History and Systems, and this is our first discussion of social psychology. So, the origin story, the boy on the curb. Reverie, Massachusetts in the 1930s, the only Jewish family in a virulent anti-Semitic neighborhood. Young Elliot is repeatedly waylaid by teenage gangs shouting slurs. He sits on the curb, nursing a split lip, wondering, why do they hate me without knowing me? Were they born hating Jews? Or was it taught? If they got to know me, would they like me a little bit more? If they liked me, would they hate other Jews less? The curator's notes, these visceral childhood questions laid the absolute foundation for a lifetime of rigorous social, psychological inquiry into prejudice and human behavior. The great Aronson, he really did go into that and really did help a lot of people with his ideas. The Call to Adventure, Discovering Psychology. And Aronson attended Brandeis University on a work study scholarship, declaring an economics major out of financial fear following his father's death. He wanted to make money to support himself until one afternoon, hoping to sit next to a girl he met at a coffee shop, he follows her into an introductory psychology lecture. Not unlike some of the things I did in undergraduate work. And so we must examine the psychological mechanisms of racial and ethnic prejudice. And that's Abraham Maslow, in case you don't recognize him in my cartoon. The professor, Abraham Maslow, father of humanistic psychology in a sense, was raising the exact questions Aronson had asked on the curb 10 years prior. Aronson dropped the girl's hand, took out his notebook, and switched his major that very day. The mentors, synthesizing humanism and rigor. The committed humanist instilled a passionate, lifelong desire to apply psychology directly to the improvement of the human condition. That's Abe Maslow. Over here, the rigorous scientist taught Aronson at Stanford, proved that with sufficient ingenuity, any human phenomena can be mastered precisely in a laboratory. He was the measurer, the machine measurer. Aronson's ultimate mission: combine Maslow's deep humanism with Festinger's high-impact, exacting experimental methodology. The core power, Leon Festinger's cognitive dissonance. In 1957, when I was 1 year old, Festinger shattered the dominance of reinforcement theory. Okay. A smoker knows smoking causes cancer. That's a belief. But continues to smoke. The behavior. That causes cognitive dissonance in the brain. Cognitive dissonance is an intensely uncomfortable psychological tension that occurs when an individual's beliefs and behaviors do not align, which is all the time for so many people. Now, Elliot Aronson refined cognitive dissonance theory by focusing on the self-concept, arguing that dissonance is strongest when the behaviors conflict with a person's sense of being moral, competent, or rational. He shifted the focus from simple logical inconsistencies of Festinger to self-justification, where individuals change attitudes or behaviors to maintain a positive self-view. The key aspects of Aronson's theory were self-concept and dissonance. While Leon Festinger introduced cognitive dissonance, Aronson refined it by asserting that the tension is only simply between two conflicting beliefs. Instead, it is most intense when inconsistency threatens a self-concept. It's not just refined by asserting tension between conflicting beliefs or ideas. It really is only when it really competes with your self concept of who you are, the self, as Jung would say. The resolution becomes humans have an innate drive to reduce this painful tension. They are motivated to alter their behavior or their beliefs, which is called rationalization, to restore internal harmony. The upgrade, Aronson's self-concept revision. Festinger believed inconsistency between two cognitions caused dissonance. Like, I like rain, I'm getting wet. But Aronson realized the theory was far too broad. Dissonance only produces clear, powerful predictions when an important element of self-concept is threatened. The clash is not just behavior versus belief, as Festinger said. The true clash is my behavior versus my concept of being a sensible, competent, and moral person. Curator's note, humans don't just desire logical constancy, we desperately need to maintain a positive, rational image of ourselves. The architecture of devotion, effort, justification, self-justification. To alleviate the discomfort of hypocrisy, individuals engage in self-justification, changing their beliefs or adding new cognitions to align with their actions. As detailed in Aronson's work, mistakes were made, but not by me. Sounds like something Clinton might say. That was a while ago. So that answers the question. Effort, when you put so much effort into something, children really are hard, and they cost $250,000 on average to raise to 18. But they're the most important thing in our life. The same situation is why the United States Marines and fraternity members in college are fiercely loyal to their groups. If you have a mild initiation, you're not going to be that loyal. If you have a severe initiation, you're going to be way more loyal in the discussion group. I went through hell and high water to get here. Clashes with this group is completely worthless. This makes me look like an idiot. Mills in 1959 assigned participants to severe versus mild initiations to join what turned out to be a worthless, intensely boring discussion group. The resolution to protect their self-concept as rational actors, those with severe initiations actively minimized the negative traits and exaggerated the positive traits of the group. Pain breeds unshakable loyalty. Yes, pain. Pain is bonding. The sabotage paradox. The sabotage paradox is one of Aronson's theories that, often linked to self-handicapping, refers to the counterintuitive tendency of individuals with negative self-expectancies to undermine their own performance to maintain psychological consistency. If you think you're a loser, and what if you win? What happens when someone firmly believes they're a failure, but they succeed? The I'm a failure clashes with I just performed exceptionally well. Success actually violates their core expectations. That's why we want to shoot for the moon and you only fall among the stars. The discovery. Aronson and Carl Smith in 1962 discovered that cognitive dissonance doesn't just happen to confident people. The tragic result, and this is kind of sad, to maintain a consistent, albeit negative, self-concept and avoid the dissonance of unpredicted success, individuals will literally sabotage their own performance, changing accurate responses to inaccurate ones just to prove themselves right. And this isn't an unconscious process, that they're semi-consciously doing that. Okay, shield of virtue. Self-esteem is a moral buffer. How we feel about ourselves insulate us from doing bad things. The mechanism. Aronson and Matee in 1968 proved that if you temporarily rise a person's self-esteem before a test, they are significantly less likely to cheat. Because they're got to be good. Wonderful, decent people like me simply do not cheat. It's like a buffer. It's like a force field that protects you. High, well-grounded self-esteem. The dissonance clash. High self-esteem makes the anticipation of committing an immoral act highly dissonant. Curator's note. A well-grounded positive self-image acts as a psychological buffer zone. The higher the self-concept, the greater the dissonance of acting like a scoundrel. So our president right now must not be very high self-image. I don't know about, well, I believe Elliot Aronson, but I want to think about our president when it comes to this. Okay, the science of attraction, one. The gain-loss theory. Aronson went on to study why people are attracted to each other. Okay. So, defeating reinforcement theory, which claimed we simply like people who constantly say nice things about us. Aronson, cha-ching, he knocked that out of the ballpark. So you have constant flattery, you stay here, but you get a little bit negative, and then you say something positive, it really has a more of an impact in dating and in other things like that. The loss effect. Conversely, we deeply despise someone whose opinion of us shifts from positive to negative, even more than someone who was consistently negative from the start. You might want to say that somebody that you're in a bar and that's somebody you're attracted to, say, "Oh, why did you wear that color today?" And then say, "Oh, but your eyes are so beautiful." That's kind of a bad example, but I'm trying to make a point. The gain effect. Aronson and Linder in 1965 found constant flattery feels obvious and loses impact. We are far more attracted to someone whose evaluation of us begins as negative, but gradually becomes positive. We convince ourselves we've earned their shifted opinion. The pratfall effect. The pratfall effect is a psychological phenomenon discovered by Aronson, and it suggests a person's likability increases after they make a mistake. That's like when you write a film script, you got to have undeserved misfortune. So a person's likability increases after they make a mistake, but only if they are perceived as highly competent. So you got to be good at what you do as a character in a movie, but you also have to have undeserved misfortune. That's the pratfall effect in screenwriting. Do humans actually love perfection? Aronson in 1966 found that highly competent, perfect people can feel alienating, distant, and threatening to our own egos. High confidence with no blunder. 3 stars. Yay, Superman. High confidence with a blunder. You stumble. Likability score. 5 stars and hearts. Mediocre. No blunder. Likability. That's even worse than if you have high confidence, but no blunder, you're perfect. That's better than being mediocre with no blunder. Mediocre with a blunder is even worse. 1 star plus skulls. So when a highly competent person commits a clumsy blunder, a pratfall, their attractiveness dramatically increases because the flaw humanizes them. We can relate to them. We can connect with them. We can develop a communitas with them. The catch, if an average or mediocre person makes the same blunder, their likability plummets even further. Saving the world. The hypocrisy paradigm. Okay. How do you change behavior when people already know the facts? Like, already know condoms stop AIDS or can prevent it. Water is scarce in California, but they still refuse to act. That's Aronson, Freed, and Stone in 1991. So that's the hypocrisy paradigm. It's a powerful social influence technique that uses cognitive dissonance to motivate people to walk their talk. Unlike traditional methods, they use information or fear that use unlike traditional methods that use information, like saying, "Oh, this is your lungs on your brain on drugs," or things like that, or fear. This approach forces individuals to confront the gap between their public advocacy and their private behavior, creating a psychological tension that can only resolve by changing their actions. So what we want them to do is sometimes is argue something counter to their actual beliefs in order to really balance them out. Like in our United States right now, having the Republicans talk about what things from the Democrats' point of view, and the Democrats talk about things and advocate for the Republicans' point of view, would get them to balance each other out some. The advocate asks subjects to publicly preach the importance of safe behavior, mindfulness, no condoms. Confront them privately with their own past failures to practice what they preached. Oh no, hypocrisy induced triggers massive dissonance. It directly threatens the self-concept as people of integrity. And that creates real behavior change because they cannot ease the past. The only way to restore their moral self-image is to actively change their future behavior. Okay, so we need to be advocates in order to keep ourselves on the straight and narrow. The epilogue, a rigorous science in the service of humanity. It's Elliot Aronson. He transformed cognitive dissonance from a dry theory about attitudes into a profound theory about the fiercely protected self, proving that humans are not inherently rational beings. We are rationalizing animals, desperate to justify our actions and maintain our self-esteem. He applied unparalleled laboratory ingenuity to solve real-world crises, from prejudice to public health. Curator's closing note, Dr. Lippincott. Through 50 years of audacious science, Aronson finally answered the questions of a bruised 9-year-old boy on a curb. And in doing so, he reshaped social psychology forever. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm glad to be your professor, and I'm glad to give you this lecture today. Learn a little bit about Elliot Aronson. And I hope to answer all your questions in class, or if you're on YouTube, I'll put questions in the comments, and I'll be happy to go over whatever we want to. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your support.